let's talk about encrypted apps. Show us or explain to us what you've described here again in sort of a link chart in slide 45 with respect to encrypted apps.
Sure. So many smartphone applications nowadays are incorporating the use of encryption. And essentially what that means is that the companies themselves are not even able to read the messages. There's no backdoor for the content of the communication. And the best way that I can explain what encryption is to give you the example of if I were to send a letter and we had an agreement. I'm going to send a letter to you, but here's the key, here's the code. Every letter that I write to you inside the envelope of the letter is going to be moved from A to C, B to D, and so forth, all the way down the alphabet. And you and I are the only ones that know that that is the key. On the outside of the envelope, anyone can read that. That's what the companies can read. I mail you the letter, you have the key, you take it, you decode it, now you can read the letter. What computing has done is taken that same concept and just used way more complicated math to make it almost impossible. So we're no longer at the A to C, B to D. They're using algorithms to make these encrypted messages essentially foolproof.
So by the use of algorithms, it ensures only that the sender and the receiver, the two people on either side of these messages, can read it.
Yes.
Okay. Does that also include law enforcement?
Law enforcement cannot typically access the content of these messages either. There is an exception. Sometimes on smartphone forensic exams we can, depending on which device it is and what the permissions are set up on that particular device. But if we're talking about business records from the companies themselves, we can't access those messages.
So does that include, if you were to look at the actual extraction of a cell phone, you would not still, even if you were able to extract data from a cell phone, if they were using, let's say, an encrypted app, you would not be able to unscramble the data to read it?
Sometimes we can. It varies.
Were you able to in this case?
In some cases.
Okay. Did the defendant and Robert Baker use encrypted apps?
Yes.
In 2017, was it as common as it is now? To that we see that people who travel internationally sometimes use that in order to avoid, let's say, like data fees.
Objection, no foundation.
It was not as common in 2017.
Was it common in 2017 that people who are involved in criminal activity would often use encrypted apps to communicate in order to prevent law enforcement from being able to read what they're messaging about?
Objection, speculation, no foundation.
Overruled as well.
So in my experience, which spans many varieties of cases, the criminal element are often very tech savvy and do adopt things like encryption early on to essentially try to evade or thwart law enforcement detection.
Let me interrupt you at this time.
Let's take our morning recess for 15 minutes. If you have any supplies, see you back here in 15 minutes.
So when we broke, we were talking about the use of encrypted apps and how law enforcement, people outside of the sender and receiver generally can't read those messages if they're encrypted. What happens, let's say, if the encrypted app were to be deleted from the phone? Does that also tend to delete all the data associated with that encrypted app?
It can further complicate our ability to look at any data that might be left behind on the phone.
So if one were to delete an encrypted application, would it also tend to delete messaging from or associated to that particular application, that data?
Yes.
Is it also possible that although the application and therefore the messaging might be deleted, that you may still be able to find artifacts indicative of prior usage of an encrypted app?
Yes, that is the case.
Okay. So what types of encrypted apps, or which encrypted apps did you find evidence of in this particular case?
In this case, WhatsApp and something called Viber.
Viber.
Yes.
Okay. Looking at slide 46, tell us what we see here.
This is a screenshot from Viber and their website. And on April 19th, 2016, they have a company blog that announced, "Today we're excited to announce that our users will be able to securely communicate across all of their devices through end-to-end encryption."
And that was as of April of 2016.
Correct.
Okay. And so what does it mean to have end-to-end encryption? Is that, again, what we were talking about from the sender to the receiver?
Yes, essentially the service provider, the company that provides that app, has zero knowledge in terms of the content, because they themselves do not have the capability to decrypt the content of the message.
Okay. So again, that would mean that as a law enforcement officer, you would not be able to read those communications.
Yes, ma'am.
And looking here at slide 47, tell us what we are seeing, what you found evidence of with respect to the defendant's iCloud account.
Yes, so this is an Apple iCloud account, which comes in the form of a spreadsheet for this particular file associated with Mrs. Monica Sementilli. There is a registration email there. And it shows the actual installation of the Viber app per Apple's records.
Installation as of what date?
Let's see. April 2016.
Okay. And this is through, as you were showing us those linkage charts at the beginning, through a different type of business record, through the actual business records for the defendant's Apple iCloud account.
That's right.
Okay. And is there also information on this particular slide, I think it's 47, yes, that gives you information with respect to the actual data or the usage? You're filtering, it looks like, from September of 2015 through April of 2017, correct?
I'm sorry, filter, not necessarily the right terminology. Can I describe the...
Yeah, and I'm just trying to get to the fact that, I'll let you describe it, but I noticed that you have an indication at the bottom that there's an IP address associated with this iCloud account.
Yes, that's correct.
So tell us what we're looking at here.
Sure. So in addition to the installation of Viber and several purchases that were made for services with Viber, it logged the IP address at the time of those transactions, which was the IP address I know to be associated during a significant time period circa 2016 to early 2017 with the Sementilli residence.
The same IP address that we looked at earlier with respect to some of the other documentation, including, I believe it was Baker's, one of his Samsungs, correct?
That's right.
Okay. And so this is also purchases within the application itself?
Yes, Viber has some sort of sticker or emoji function where people can purchase sticker packs, and that's what those transactions were.
Okay. Sticker packs for emojis, such as if you were to send somebody a message, you could include an emoji like a heart or some other type of emoji on your message. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, similar to other modern messaging applications where users are able to use small graphical icons that represent happiness, sadness, laughter, hearts, and so on.
Okay. Looking at slide 48, is this another record that corroborates what you saw with respect to the usage of Viber through business records associated with the defendant's AT&T account?
Yes, it is.
And what did you indicate here on this particular slide, slide 48?
So this particular business record is a long text file that includes the AT&T web history associated with the phone number, and it logs web access to particular content, and the ones I've highlighted here in red include Viber.com, which is the Viber service.
Okay. So that also corroborates, again, the usage of this application during a period of time through the defendant's AT&T web history, correct?
Yes.
And approximately how many entries did you find between the period of installation in April of 2016 through, let's say, January 17th that you've indicated at the bottom of 2017?
433 entries in this particular record.
So what does that mean when you have an entry?
These companies keep their records in different formats, and that's why they look different when I show the screenshots of them. In the case of AT&T, they typically do records at 5-minute intervals, and the 433 just happens to be the way AT&T keeps track of the individual services and websites that people go to at those 5-minute increments.
So if we're looking at 433 entries, is that just between the defendant and Robert Baker?
Don't know for sure. We would need a larger swath of data from Viber to corroborate that.
Okay. What do we see here in slide 49 that you've captured?
Sure, and I apologize for the small print. It was the only way I could fit it on one slide. This is also from the Apple iCloud records, and it shows essentially app updates from the Apple Store for Viber over a period of time from April 20th, 2016 to January 4th, 2017.
Okay. So we know that it had to have been in use because it was installed at least during that time period.
Correct.
Okay. And what do we see here on the Celebrite report in slide 50?
So now this is a log entry directly from the phone, the iPhone that was associated with Mrs. Monica Sementilli. And this is a specific artifact known as a log entry kept by the device, indicating that there was Viber on the particular device.
And that was on the date of the murder in this case, correct? January 23rd of 2017?
That is correct.
Okay. So this is part of the forensic phone extraction that you viewed, correct?
Yes, it is.
All right. What do we see here that you've captured in slide 51 with respect to the Viber business records for the defendant's phone number?
Now we have the Viber business records from Viber as a business entity themselves directly from them.
Okay. And you've indicated on here that there's 5,752 messages to and from the defendant's phone number, correct?
That is correct.
And all of these messages are between, as I asked in the prior question, the defendant and Robert Baker's phone, correct?
Yes.
And that's just the month of January of 2017 alone?
Yes, ma'am.
The 5,752 messages between them.
Yes.
Does that also, once again, include the Sementilli Wi-Fi address?
Not that I can see here.
Let's look here at slide 52, I believe. What did you capture here?
Yeah, so this is part of the Viber records that they produced. And this is a Viber call history, so telephone calls that are essentially routed through the Viber service. And this includes a caller and recipient IP address as part of that particular log file. That does have that same Wi-Fi address.
So in addition to being able to send messages through this encrypted application, you can also make phone calls through the application.
Yes.
Okay. So what is it that you've highlighted here?
These are all the instances where that particular IP address shows in the record.
Okay. The Sementilli home IP address.
Correct.
Okay. And again, these would be this would be part of the record of the phone calls between the defendant and Baker in January of 2017.
Yes.
What do we see here in slide 53 that you've captured?
This is some data extracted from Mrs. Sementilli's iPhone that also shows phone calls that match the business records that were obtained from Viber. They show that there was a Viber contact tied to Mr. Robert Baker's number and given kind of a username of Louisa, and that these calls were deleted.
And I've note that you noted at the very end there that Baker's middle name is Lewis.
Yes.
Okay. When you say that the Viber contact for Baker's phone number was deleted, what does that mean?
According to the forensic data in the phone, and that's the column I've highlighted on the right-hand side with the red box, the calls were deleted from, or attempted to be deleted from the phone.
Okay. But they still came through in the extraction. At least you could see remnants or artifacts from that. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So at some time prior to their arrest on June 14th of 2017, when this particular cell phone was seized, the defendant attempted to delete the contact for Baker.
Well, I'm cautious about saying who deleted what because I'm not present for that, but there was data that was deleted.
Okay. What do we see here in slide 54?
So I created a chart in Excel just showing for that approximate month period of time in January 2017 the volume of communications traffic between the phone number associated to Robert Baker and the phone number associated with Mrs. Sementilli on the Viber app.
And that again is just for the activity during the month of January of 2017?
Correct.
Date of January 22nd of 2017. It is 4 pages in length. May be marked as People's 159.
Yes.
communications between the defendant and Baker just for the date of January 22nd of 2017?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have another timeline that is 4 pages in length again, and this is just for the date of January 23rd of 2017. May it be marked as People's 160.
It may.
Thank you. With respect to Exhibit 160, does this also document the communications from the defendant, including her communications to Baker on the day of the murder, January 23rd?
Yes.
All right. Looking at slide 56, can you describe, I'm sorry, this is slide 55, what you've captured here?
Yes, this is another screenshot showing some of the messaging that took place between the phone number associated to Mr. Baker and the phone number associated to Mrs. Sementilli via Viber on the afternoon of January 23rd, 2017.
Just the afternoon.
Yes.
And which hours is this between?
This is, let's see, 17, it's 5:48 to 8:14. This is essentially Eastern time, so we back it up 3 hours. So 2:48 to 5:14.
5:14.
Yes.
Looking at slide 56, Viber usage with respect to Baker's Samsung S4, what did you capture here?
This is another artifact. This one is from Mr. Baker's Samsung S4. It shows that Viber was in use on that device going all the way back to 2015.
Okay. And the following slide, slide 57, what is this?
This is a photograph recovered from the business records from Mr. Robert Baker's Dropbox account. And this particular image was recovered from the Dropbox account entitled viberimage.jpg.
So what does that mean?
Somebody, and I can't say who, named the file Viber image.
Okay. And this is, again, on Baker's Dropbox account.
Correct.
Contained within his Dropbox account.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. What do we see here in slide 58? Again, a linkage chart.
So as you know, I like these link charts. This is one for Viber in particular, and essentially it shows the use of Viber between the iPhone associated to Mrs. Sementilli and the Samsung S4 associated with Mr. Baker, and how those accounts, many of which we've just reviewed, all connect and overlap with each other.
Okay. The Samsung, in this case, the S4.
Yes.
Okay. And this is based on the various business records, such as what we see here, the AT&T business records or Dropbox business records, Viber records that we've been talking about.
Yes.
Okay. As well as obviously the data from the forensic extraction of their cell phones.
Correct.
All right. What do we see here in slide 59, which I believe you referenced at the beginning?
Yes, this was in one of my earlier link charts, and this is an artifact recovered from Mr. Baker's Samsung S4 in reference to a Facebook Messenger chat between himself and an account associated to Mr. Christopher Austin. And the content of that is download WhatsApp on your phone.
What is WhatsApp?
WhatsApp is one of the most popular chat applications in the world. It was purchased by Facebook, now known as Meta. It's used all over the world to facilitate instant messaging and phone calls. And it is end-to-end encrypted.
So once again, this is an application where you can message, or as we saw with Viber, you can make phone calls through the app.
Yes.
What's the purpose of that, making phone calls through the app?
It can vary. Sometimes, particularly with international audiences, it enables folks to keep in touch with each other without paying the astronomical fees from direct cellular phone calls.
Okay. So you said voice calls can be made. Can one also make video calls?
Yes.
We talked about sending messages,
Yes.
documents,
Yes.
videos.
Yes.
What do we see here in slide 60?
This is one of those basic subscriber information sheets. And this particular WhatsApp account is associated with Mr. Baker's phone number. And even though WhatsApp is encrypted, they do keep some data on their customers. And one of the things in this particular record is a list of all the contacts. And so underneath that top portion where it designates whose account it is, it's a list of all the phone numbers in the particular WhatsApp contacts, and that includes the 818 phone number associated with Mrs. Sementilli and a 907 phone number associated with Mr. Christopher Austin.
Okay. And what date is this that we're talking about?
Let's see, the date last changed June 13, 2017.
If I go back one slide to slide 59, this would have been on January 26th of 2017, 3 days after the murder, correct?
Yes,
The communication between Baker and Austin?
correct.
Okay. Moving forward to slide 61, what is this?
This is another screenshot from that WhatsApp subscriber information. This one is associated with that phone number affiliated with Mr. Baker, and it shows when the account was first created, when it was registered, and the first send, which is the first message, as well as underneath that a device name, and that's the sort of corporate name for a Samsung S6 device.
Okay. So this was a device that he had to have in his possession at the time this record was created on the day of the murder, correct? January 23rd.
Correct.
And the time, 23:40, does that have to be adjusted for UTC, or is that in fact 11:40 at night?
The WhatsApp records, unlike most of the other records we get, are actually in Pacific time.
Okay. So this is a record that was created at 11:40 the night of the murder.
Yes.
Okay. Relative to the phone number we know is associated with Robert Baker.
Yes.
Okay. Looking here at slide 62 with respect to the defendant's phone number, what do we see here?
Essentially, it's the same record as far as the type This is a WhatsApp business record. This one is associated with that phone number. And as before, it shows when the account was created, registered, and when the first message was sent.
Okay. So that would have been 4 days after the murder on January 27th
Yes,
at somewhere around 8:34 in the morning.
correct.
What do we see here in slide 63?
This is an artifact recovered from the iPhone associated to Mrs. Sementilli, and it has a contact entry in the phone for the WhatsApp account affiliated with Mr. Baker's phone number. And there is a push name, which is a display name of RB, and the number is listed as Louisa.
What is a display name or a push name? That's what comes up on your phone?
It's like a username.
Okay. And another linkage chart in slide 64. Explain what you have displayed here.
Sure, and it's similar to the Viber link chart. This is now one for WhatsApp, showing the connections and references across different devices and accounts, and the usage of WhatsApp to include the Samsung S8, the Samsung S6, which we know about from the WhatsApp records themselves, the iPhone 7 associated with Mrs. Sementilli, and the various phone numbers for all parties.
Okay. Looking at slide 65, Viber to WhatsApp timeline. What did you display here?
So in addition to showing kind of the linkages between these accounts, I like to see the context of these different accounts over time. And that's what I've done here, is essentially create a timeline for most of the data that we've already seen individually to put it in some sort of context. So starting at the top from the iCloud records, we have when Viber was first installed on the iPhone associated to Mrs. Sementilli. Then we've got Viber activity spread across the AT&T web history. We've got Viber app updates also taking place over time in the iCloud records. We've got ongoing Viber chats between the account associated to Mr. Baker and Mrs. Sementilli from the end of 2016 through most of January. That's the 5,000 plus messages.
5,700?
5,700, yes. We've got log entries from the S4, from the iPhone. We've got the WhatsApp records themselves for the creation of new WhatsApp accounts, the direction from Mr. Baker's Facebook Messenger account to the Austin Facebook Messenger account to download WhatsApp, and then the creation of a WhatsApp account on January 27th by the phone number associated with Mrs. Sementilli.
Okay. So from this, we can see that prior to the murder, the defendant and Baker were using Viber as their encrypted app for means of communication, and then after the murder, they switched to using WhatsApp as their encrypted app.
Yes.
And what do we see here in slide 66?
So this is a business record from Facebook, from Mr. Baker's associated Facebook account, and it shows the removal of certain friends from that account. And there are two of them associated to Mr. Christopher Austin. The first one, the user is Christopher Austin, and the removal of that account was on January 26th, 2017. And the second one is a second account for Mr. Austin, Chris Vocals, and that one was removed June 1st, 2017.
Okay. So the first one, he's removing Austin as basically a friend from his Facebook account,
Yes,
January 26th, and at 1:52 a.m. local time, correct?
that's right.
And the second being another Facebook account for the same individual, Christopher Austin, under the name Chris Vocals on the June 1st date.
Yes.